Mazhar Sheikh, Commercial Director, and Latif Sultan, the Category Leader, for a very timely topic on understanding the COVID-19 implications on online user behavior and some background about the story of Noon. And again, our students who are joining us are from different backgrounds. So you have the finance, accounting, those in supply chain management and HR, management information systems. So hopefully we'll have a nice mix of different questions and discussions. Thank you.
Sure.
The virtual floor is yours.
All right, so let's get started. See, the presentation that we've put to share with the group is basically in two parts. One is on understanding the impact of COVID on overall retail, specifically on online users. And the second part is basically what is the known story, what did we face at known, and what exactly, how did we react to that? All right, Abdul Latif, let's move.
Sure. So
sorry,
I think
it's your screen.
Yeah, I think it's being presented by Taha.
Taha, yeah, Taha, go ahead and choose.
Next slide, please. Okay, so on this slide, I mean, there are a lot of numbers here, but the output from this slide is, this is basically a Google trend data, which tells you as compared to the previous outbreaks, or let's say the flus, whether it's Ebola, swine flu, and so on, from a search trend perspective, where does Corona stand? And as it's clear from the map, it's actually surpassed all the past viruses or outbreaks that has happened in past. Swine flu was more deadly in terms of, let's say, number of people impacted versus the deaths reported. Coronavirus is not that deadly, but this slide mainly focuses on how much it has created the buzz, because search, when someone shares with you a search trend example, that basically indicates what is going in people's mind. People would search something more because they would want to understand more about it, and it is lasting much longer. It's lasting, let's say, we've been seeing this since last 3 months, and it's still not yet ended. And all industry experts are saying this entire 2020 could go into, in a mode where we still struggle to fight, and we continue to get back to offices or get back to schools with living with coronavirus, but obviously with some precautions and so on. So yeah, here the output of the slide is mainly to talk about how much it has created the buzz around search, and it's much higher than all the other outbreaks that we have faced. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, on this one, we'll quickly run through some of the next 2-3 slides. We'll not spend much time on these 2-3 slides. We would love to spend more time when we come to the second part, where on how did Noon react to it. This is more of index search volumes of which sections of, let's say, the categories saw a peak in search, right? So for example, the number one category which saw a peak is household supplies, and household supplies looks much stronger here on the slide, mainly because it's a much broader division. It can include your all toilet supplies, it can include your laundry supplies, anything that people panic and people would want to store it, because everywhere the sentiment was, and I'm not sure if people let's say follow some of the global news, is in Australia there was a situation where they had to literally shut down a specific part of the city because people were so panicking that they were buying toilet papers for about 3 months, and that created a lot of drama around the news spread, and things get viral. And today in the world of social media, where things can get viral in few minutes, that further causes problem for let's say the authorities who manage this. So household supplies is a much bigger segment, and that saw the biggest spike in terms of search. In terms of grocery, if you see, the one thing that is questionable on this graph, you would say grocery is one of the most essential thing, right? But still you see household supply scaling much faster and much more than the grocery thing. I think, the clear answer to that is household one is a much bigger segment. Second, grocery was still allowed for a lot of period of the overall lockdown period. For example, all the Danube groceries or Carrefour groceries, Lulu supermarket, these players were allowed to stay open. Even us as consumers were allowed to walk up to a grocery store, but maybe not walk up to a fashion store or buying some beauty products. So household, for that reason, would tend to get a lot of more traction online. Can we move to the next one, please? All right. So, like I said, we'll run through quickly because this is connected to the previous one. This just tells you a little more in details, things which saw a bigger increase in terms of search trends. This is again Google internal data for UAE plus Saudi put together. Sorry, UAE, Saudi, and Egypt put together. So cooking at home sort of topic got a 12% to 15% increase. Fitness at home surprisingly got a 65% increase. And working from home related categories, which is, let's say, laptops, computers, and computer accessories got about 13 to 19%. Fitness, we would again go in more detail when we go to the noon story. Fitness turned out to be a big surprise for all of us that when people stay at home, it was a big surprise that people are so concerned of staying fit. Maybe when people work outside, they do not think of, or gyms were open earlier, maybe they do not think of buying that much of fitness stuff. But the moment it was about staying at home, I think one of the key categories where people thought that they can spend time a lot or they should do a lot was being fit, or buying these fitness equipment. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll take that as a no. And
yeah, I think most of them will ask towards the end. So once
sure, okay,
everyone will jump in. Thank you.
Okay, this again is an indication of the point which I just mentioned. These are YouTube searches on physical fitnesses in Saudi specifically. So the previous one was more of a Google search data for 3 countries put together. This is Saudi specifically, where users would go on YouTube and search about few exercises because they do not have any person or a trainer who can teach them, or anyone who can give them tips to stay fit. So now the best source for all of us, and specifically I think for the younger generation, is to go back to mobile and search on YouTube on home fitnesses, or taking tips, or taking maybe some virtual trainer and understanding on staying fit at home. So this data shows there was a spike somewhere around May, which resulted into it's actually somewhere between March and April, which there was a surge in terms of physical fitness related search on YouTube, and it still continues even though things have opened now. But I think it will take another couple of months for things to go back to complete normalcy. The data does not have July or June there, but as far as what we are aware of, there is still high traction on this category, mainly because people are still not comfortable going outside in the gym, and maybe it's not completely as normal as it was, let's say, in Jan and Feb earlier this year. Okay, this slide, it talks about how Saudi residents reacted to buying online. So if you see, sorry. Okay, so if you see the left bar for KSA and the bullets which are there at the bottom, so the questions which were asked, sorry. Okay, so the questions that was asked was more, it's a McKinsey question which says, are you or your family member using e-commerce to purchase products you would normally buy in store? And strong 60%. I think we moved on the slide. Can we go back to the previous one? Yeah. So the left graph, the first bar on the left, which is KSA, 63% of the respondents have replied more frequently. There are 7% of the respondents who said they rarely do, and there are 18% which said less frequently, and 12% who said no change at all. But if you see KSA from all the markets that were questioned by McKinsey, KSA still stands very different from all the other markets. Actually, more or less twice of Morocco and let's say 150% of Lebanon. That also indicates, you know, the adoption of e-commerce specifically in Saudi Arabia has always been, and all the other data that we look at when we try to understand Saudi customers, it indicates that adoption for Saudi customers has been much more faster than other countries in the Middle East. You know, we also look at data like how many people, how many number of devices each customer has. And one of the things that comes out very strongly in Saudi is that on an average, each consumer here in Saudi Arabia has about 1.9 mobile phones. You know, when the average is 1.9 means there are a lot of people who actually have 2 to 3 gadgets, right? I know Mr. Mustafa is smiling because for us, for older people, maybe it's not that common to carry 2 gadgets. And you know, we are more from old school, and I understand that the young generation might be quite used to or seeing 2 phones, people having. And you know, that's a problem which a lot of mobile companies have tried to kill by introducing phones which can carry 2 SIMs and 3 SIMs. But there are some other mysterious reason for which people still want to carry 2 phones, right? People still want to keep maybe one phone separate for their purely for their office purposes, one phone separate for personal purposes. I mean, reasons can be multiple. But yeah, like I said, like all the other data on digitalization, Saudi stands out, you know, on adopting to market first. I'll share one more data, which is again not there on the screen. You know, back in 2016, when we was thinking of starting Known, and before, you know, you start anything or you do any investment, you look at market data, you look at all the dynamics of how consumer behavior is. One of the things that we looked at is Google searches on mobile phone versus desktop, or let's say laptops. So one thing to look at is how many people search on their devices on mobile phone and how many people search on laptops or desktop. You would ask, okay, why is that important? Basically, that's important because a country which is more on mobile has a higher chances of adapting to e-commerce, because basically that's m-commerce, because mobile, you know, is much more. Mobile is actually mobile, right? Mobile means you are mobile, you are moving, right? You can do your shopping in the car, you can do your shopping outside, standing outside your house, you can do your shopping anywhere. But when you are on laptop or in your desktop, you have to tie yourself to a place where Wi-Fi is available, and you know, you're sitting. So m-commerce usually is much more flexible, higher conversion. Imagine if you, again, I'm focusing on the young guys here. Imagine if you have to write or make an Instagram story or a Snapchat story on, and you have been asked to do that only on laptops or desktop. You would not like it, right? Because that's not fun at all, right? You want to be mobile, you want to be outside. So one of the data that we were looking at in 2016, and you won't believe, so there were 2 graphs. There was one graph which shows how mobile search has gone up, and the other graph how laptop search has gone down. And both the graphs were meeting somewhere, right? So for Australia, for example, let's say mobile overtook desktop somewhere around 2015-16. For UK and a lot of developed countries, for Russia, for India, actually that time it did not overtake, which means India was still a laptop heavy country. But Saudi Arabia, surprisingly, was in 2014, mobile search actually overtook laptop search. So this is one of those countries which is mobile first, which helps digitalization, which helps e-commerce. And that's one of the reason when we started Known, one of the one of the points, strong points for us to launch Noon was that this country is hungry for e-commerce. This country wants a lot of assortment, a lot of variety, but maybe they do not have that much at disposal, and that's why they also end up buying from international countries. Fine. So sorry, I diverted from this topic, but it was important for me to maybe give you some idea on how we look at country data. So yeah, in this again, KSA clearly shows that a lot of customers started buying more frequently on e-commerce as compared to all the other countries, and started buying would be the same categories that we discussed before, which starts with essentials, and then go to non-essentials. Can we move to the next slide, please? All right, on this one, what we are showing is the preference of shifting to e-commerce is expected to stay. It's expected to prevail unless the e-commerce players give you a very horrible experience. I mean, more and more, all the data shows that nowadays customers are looking for variety, they're looking for convenience, and they're looking for competitive price. I would not call it, let's say, cheap price or a good deal and so on. There are obviously a set of customers who come online only if there are good deals, but there are a set of customers who regularly buy when it's for a matter of convenience, for a matter of sitting at home. You're sitting in your comfortable clothing, you don't need to change, you're sitting on your couch, you're playing with your cat or a dog or whatever pet you have, and at the same time you're doing shopping, which would ideally take maybe a couple of hours if you have to go to mall and find parking and so on. See, there are few things which e-commerce will not be able to replicate. For example, for some families, going to mall is an event, right? It's the kids will go to the play area, wife will go to the salon, beauty salon, or whatever. So it's an event, and then we end the day by going to a good restaurant. That we, I think someone is. Okay, so going for that event, we cannot change. But at the same time, given the kind of convenience e-commerce brings, this thing is here to stay. I was in one of the discussion with Bain, which is a consulting company globally. Lots of expert analysts are saying that we have. Lots of expert analysts are saying that most of the countries have achieved the level of e-commerce which maybe we would have achieved after 2 years from now. So what COVID has done, what Corona has done, is that it has helped us move 2 years faster, 2 years ahead. So now on this slide, if you see, the e-commerce app downloads has suddenly taken a spike from Feb onward till March in this data, and it still continues. If you see the right graph, it says consumers are buying online more frequently as the pandemic continues. If you see the overall 48% to 63%, that's the number of downloads that most of the popular e-commerce companies have experienced. And this is here to stay. This is here to stay because the moment they come, and a lot of these guys had never tried e-commerce before, which is basically in our e-commerce terminology, we call it customer acquisition cost, right? These customers have come at no cost to us or a very low cost to us. Now it's our job to ensure that we give them amazing customer experience. And the moment this becomes a habit, then there will be more and more customers, more and more, and it spreads, right? For example, now you do not have to tell a young kid or a 15-year-old kid that smartphone is good to have, right? It has become a habit. He's seeing it, right? He's seeing everyone in the house is using smartphones. Someone is playing games, someone is doing something else. So it's become a habit that it's mandatory that you should have a smartphone because you can do so many things in a smartphone that it's impossible if you tell someone you're living your life without a smartphone, right? It was possible maybe when we were in colleges, maybe back in I'm talking about late 90s or early 2000. That time it was possible you would find a lot of kids without smartphone. But now, yes, it's becoming like part of life, which is what e-commerce have to become in future, where you touch the life of customers so many times in a month. Like sometimes they buy grocery with you, sometimes they buy clothes with you, sometimes they buy toy with you, sometimes they buy games with you, that you become a part of their life. You become something that people should get surprised today. Like we will get surprised if someone is living his life without smartphone. Similarly, a few years down the line, people should get surprised, man, how are you living without having without buying online? It is still a long way to go. I'm not saying it's immediately happening, but at least this overall corona thing has helped us move forward by a couple of years easily. All right, let's move, please. Okay, so the next part is basically the noon story. So whatever I have just mentioned is more around overall e-commerce companies, overall e-commerce trends, and how people have reacted. In noon, what have we specifically done? There will be some part of repeat from the previous few slides, but in this one we will specifically focus on exactly within the noon team what were the actions taken. Can we go to next? Okay. All right. So on this one, if you see the challenges that we've faced, the number one was change in consumption trends and significant surge in demand. Now, for outsiders, it could be a question: why is that a challenge? I mean, you are getting a lot of demand, you're getting a lot of customers free, and getting everything is good for e-commerce. But what happens is, if some of you guys might be studying in supply chain as well, and operations, logistics, there are a few things which you can build in few weeks, and there are a few things which takes months or years to build. For example, today, if a company is doing, online company is doing 10,000 orders, and tomorrow it's asked to do 100,000 orders, you cannot change your operation within weeks. You cannot have that many number of drivers suddenly. You cannot have that much bigger warehouse suddenly. Again, the numbers that I'm quoting is not known numbers, but I'm giving an example that operations cannot scale within weeks of time. So what happened is, when the consumption trend changed, what we mean by the first point is the trend of, let's say, overall, when we sell, we are a multi category e-commerce website, right? So when we sell, the share of categories like personal care, when I say personal care, it's, let's say, your sanitizers, mask, these things fall under that. The share of these categories would be less than 4 or 5%, right? We are a heavy electronics, generally customer preference towards electronics is more in most of the general merchandise. And I'm not talking about Saudi alone. This is the same data in China, in India, in US, UK, that if you are a general merchandise website, general merchandise means you sell everything. You're not a Namshi or a Net-a-Porter which sells only fashion. You are selling everything. The moment you are selling everything, by default, electronics becomes your strong category, because customer preference towards fashion is still that they want to get the touch and feel. They want to, maybe experience how the cloth quality is. Even when you go to, even category like eyewear, you want to go and wear and see, does it suit your face and so on. But electronics, when you buy a Samsung phone or an Apple phone or a Huawei phone, it will be the same if what you buy outside. So electronics has more preference. Similarly for video games, if you want to buy a FIFA 19, there is not much difference, or FIFA 20, which there is not much difference from outside versus online. That's one of the reasons that electronics becomes dominant. Now, what happened during pandemic is suddenly personal care picked up. From selling, let's say, 100 sanitizers in a week, we started selling 1,000 in a day, right? So one challenge was obviously speaking to the vendors, getting the supply, understanding if actually the supply exists. And the other challenge was, do we have enough space in the warehouse? Do we have enough drivers to do that, right? So that is basically what is covered in the first challenge. Second one, on-demand players entering grocery delivery and traditional retailers moving online. This is a behavior. This is not something that, let's say, it's a big challenge for us, but yes, that throws away your dynamics of how you want to manage your categories if there are other players entering your game, and they are also getting into online deliveries. Then frequent change in regulation. What we meant by this is there was a period initially where e-commerces were allowed to operate freely. Then there was a period of few weeks where we were specifically told that you need to have 1, 2, 3, 4 licenses. Your drivers need to have licenses. Even if the drivers want to step out, they need to have licenses. You should have warehouse license, you should have operations license, you should have logistics license, you should have people license. Different types of licenses, which basically meant, first of all, let's say we had 500 drivers. These 500 drivers were already not enough to cater to the demand. And suddenly there were few rules, regulations by ministries, which out of the 500 drivers, let's say we were able to qualify only 350 drivers because not everyone was able to meet the requirement, some IQAMA expiry issue and so on. And which basically means there is another challenge of catering to that high demand with lesser number of people. There is someone in the meeting room, I guess. Sorry, waiting room. All right, I'll move to the next point. Seller network not being able to supply during lockdown. Sorry, not next slide, on the same slide, point number 4. Can we go back, please?
No, I think it's about going back.
Yeah. So we are on point number 4, where sellers were not able to supply during lockdown. So the way market was impacted, not everyone was equipped to have licenses to stay open. For example, there was a period of few days where ministry had announced that only people who have pharmacy license should be able to operate, which means everyone else should not be seen on the road. So if these sellers have to drop few thousand units at our warehouse, they refused to come because there was a period of few days where they were supposed to get those licenses. So again, that was a challenge from our side, that we do have demand, we do have a lot of orders, do have a lot of customers, but from a seller side perspective, there are a bit of challenges. But having said that, this was only for a small period and this was only for a small set of sellers. Majority of our sellers were able to manage, and we actually got more supply than what we would have thought, mainly because these same sellers had to literally shut down their stores which was open offline, right? So if they were selling whatever they were selling, let's say on a street or shop in Jeddah or Riyadh, now that store is shut. So their only hope to recover those losses or get rid of those stocks was online. So we did get positive response from most of the sellers in supplying to this additional demand. There were only a small set of sellers who got impacted due to the lockdown. Okay, the last point, which is more of a challenge that we faced, was around removal of cash on delivery. I don't think that needs much explanation. When we say challenge, means it obviously impacts some of the customers who wants to buy online but are not either comfortable paying by credit card, or they don't have the ability to pay. There are very few customers obviously who currently are challenged on not having the credit card, but there are still a lot of customers who do not have the preference. So there is a difference. Not having a credit card is more of a ecosystem issue, that we don't have enough banks, we don't have enough credit card. And the second point is not comfortable paying. That's more of a preference. And that, I think, is one of the trend. When I was talking about some of the earlier trend that Saudi economy is boosting and a lot of people are going online, searching online, want to buy online. But that one point is still which keeps Saudi slightly behind, let's say, some of the European countries, that people are still not comfortable paying online. Just to share some data, overall 70% of the transactions that we have, and even let's say overall e-commerce companies that our competition has, are happening on cash on delivery, which basically means only 30% of our customers want to pay either through credit card, debit card, or Sadad, or some of the other banking options available. So there is still a strong portion of customers who prefer to have cash on delivery. And the moment ministry imposed that we should not allow cash on delivery, we saw a lot of customers not willing to buy. But then I think it was a couple of days thing, and then these customers came back because they did not have any other option outside. So we actually converted a lot of cash on delivery customer to prepaid customer. All right. We go to the next one. I think the sharing is stopped.
I think the slides have just gone off, Mustafa.
I think the screen sharing has stopped.
Just give it a second. Taha, if you could put back the slides, please. There we go.
All right, so this is basically the slide which talks about Noon's response on what all we did to handle the situation. Obviously, like most of the organization, we ensured that the operations is smooth. One of the values that we live by, it was not the time to make business. It was a time to being there for the customers, right? It was there. These customers were coming to you in need. Some of them might be in desperate need. Some of them might be needing these sanitizers or mask or these stuff much more desperately than, let's say, some of the others who were able to source it much before. There was a period of 2-3 weeks where sanitizers were completely out of stock in, let's say, most of the Nahdi pharmacies or Dawa pharmacies. And there was a period where mask distribution, there were even cases where people would stock a lot and try to sell it at a higher prices offline and so on. So the value that obviously we express to all our team members is that it's not about making business. So if you have, let's say, 1,000 mobiles waiting on our warehouse and you want to inbound, and at the same time if you have 3,000 sanitizers, you would prioritize the sanitizers even though mobiles give you more business. One mobile you sell, it's about selling maybe 100 sanitizers because of the price difference between, let's say, a 4,000 real item versus a 40 real item. But still, the message to the team was very clear to prioritize health and safety item, which is basically the point number 2 mentioned there. And the message was clear that we respond to the demand on essential categories. We'll explain you in the next slide what we actually mean by essential categories, which we classified looking at the demand pattern. One of the things that worked well is, some of these offline players who would not consider working with online players easily, or maybe the conversations would get dragged for months. Those actually, because of this situation, those things started moving faster. So Danube actually tied up with us. Toys R Us is one of the names. There are some of the other big names in mobiles distribution and in home category as well, whom we are in talks. Al Hokair, for example, has signed up during this period. So these were some big names who actually gave us positive response, and things moved positively for us. Can we move to next, please? All right, so here I think it gives you an idea of the point that I mentioned in the previous slide, what we mean by essential categories. So obviously the very first essential category, what you see on the left, is health and care, safety product, grooming, baby products, sports and nutrition, entertainment, toys and video games, and then work from home, laptops and home improvement, and then kitchen and home appliances. One of the things that helps you understand customer sentiments, right? So it was very clear to understand the first one, safety, baby, and sports to an extent, because people are at home, they want to stay healthy and so on. But games, the moment the games picked up, we started obviously making some understanding of the consumer behavior. That also showed how critical it is for parents to ensure that the kids don't get bored at home, right? Because they were looking into a future of few weeks or months where they don't know whether they will be able to step out to the mall. Usually the culture that the kids have, they like stepping out every weekend, they like going to the malls, they like being part of some of the game zone, fun zone, maybe even traveling outside the city to maybe a villa or istiraha or whatever. Families have their own preferences, right? Here people were looking at a future of uncertainty. They don't know how long. So the first thing is you take care of your health. That's the first category which picked up. Then you take care of your baby's health. Then you obviously take care of how well you are groomed, sports and so on. And then you have to ensure that you if you want peace of mind, you ensure that your kids are happy, right? They otherwise your kids would be, you would be doing some maybe like a web call like this, and your kid would be standing next to you asking for something, right? So just to ensure that the kids are shut, there was a super high demand for toys, right? And why I specifically spend time on this, because in most of the categories, the spike was, let's say, 80%, 100%, 150%, which means if we were selling, let's say, 10,000 units of something, we started selling 18,000, 20,000. Toys was one category where we actually did 3x, which means if we were selling 30,000 toys, we started selling 90,000 toys. That's another customer sentiment, which is very clear, that parents do not want to take fight with kids. Parents want to ensure that, okay, we give them what they need, and we ensure that they spend their time well at home. They do not get into a state where they are troubling the parents, or creating a environment which is difficult to handle. Cool. So I'll move away from the kids topic, and on the right there is more of a search trends, just more of information sharing with you all, which were the highest searched keywords. Dettol, gloves, face mask, hand sanitizers. These were the highest search, and then the other search trends, what people were looking for. Again, reflecting the categories on the left, but we are just sharing here the keywords that people were using, whether it's card games, coffee machines, head shavers. Again, head shavers, that's also sentiment, right? All the barber shops were closed, so there were a lot of lucky people who got themselves shaved by their wives or by sisters and so on for the first time in life, myself included. There were obviously few people who were alone, and they tried, and we wish them luck for the result that they got. But this slide basically talks about the overall essential categories behavior and the top searched keywords. Cool. Let's go to the next, please. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Just a second, there's a little bit of technical issue.
Okay, no issues.
I'll just make Mazhar has sharing enabled for him, so he can drive it.
Sure.
All right. I think most probably the last slide around what we've experienced. This again is a continuation of the essential, non-essential. We've just tried to keep another slide for understanding of the overall group. So if you see on the left, in the categories that we just discussed on the previous slides, which we classify as essentials, the share of those categories in units sold was about 26% in January, 28% in February, so more or less same, and then it jumped to 40% in March, and then 43% to April. And that jump is, in terms of percentage, you would read it as only a 15% or 17% jump, but guys, on the base of the units that we sell, it's pretty high. I'm not allowed to share the exact numbers, but just to give you guys an idea, on an average, our units sold ranges somewhere around 150K to 200K, depending on the traffic on the website per day, right? So that's the number of units we are talking about. And on that base, essentials share was 25, 1/4 of the overall units, for example. And that moved up to, so the 17% jump on that base of units that we are selling is very high. And essential again are those categories which belongs to health and personal care, games, toys, and bit of work from home categories. And non-essentials are everything else, which in a normal, what this does, it also brings our average selling price down. When I was covering in few slides back that it impacts our operations, means everything that we do gets planned for a few weeks, right? The number of drivers we need, the number of space we need, how much will be our orders, how many shipments we'll have to pack. That all gets impacted because of this, because people's preference of buying expensive items goes down during this period, and lot of low priced items start selling more, which means even though you have a lot of business, from that lot of business, there are a lot of orders and a lot of low ASP, low average selling price items coming, which impacts your overall operations planning. Okay, can we go to the last one, please? Okay, so I think we've covered this. All in all, if you see what's mentioned here, we've covered this in briefly. No doubt, the point which I mentioned, we are ahead by a couple of years. The first point is it mentions that yes, it has sent shockwaves to global economy, millions of families. Most of the people currently, let's say, who are connected to e-commerce world would accept that the way suppliers would react to working with an e-commerce company has changed. So the question which is on the right, for me, the answer is yes. And I would let, if people from the group would also want to answer that, for me, the answer is a strong yes, that yes, this will be the year of digital evolution. When we were in conversations with some big names that I just mentioned that we would want to work with, and the kind of response that we would get from them, or the kind of let's say the time that it would take versus what happens today, we see a lot of conversation. There are actually cases where we spent 2 years in talking to some big groups and big companies, trying to make them work with us, and it just took maybe 2 weeks of the corona period for them to sign the contract, right? So this is definitely the year of digital evolution. I think there are some irreversible change, which is basically mentioned now in the point number 2. There are some the impact that corona has brought. There are some changes which we cannot reverse. There are things like customers buying preferences, seeing a drastic shift towards online. There are changes that customers who are strong. I don't know if you have cases in your family who are strongly against online, who have one past experience, let's say 1 year back, and someone sent them a wrong item or a wrong color, or the quality was not good, or the item was delivered damaged, and they quote that example to not buy online. They always say, oh, once I have got this and I have this problem, I will not buy online. Online players are all false promises and so on. Those guys have now come back. Those guys have now realized, because they were forced to come back. But then when they saw that, okay, it's not that bad. Last time maybe I had that bad one experience. It's not that bad. Now we are confident that they will stick. And us as e-commerce players have the responsibility to ensure that they stick. We'll have to do everything that we can to ensure that they stick. And the last point is more about, we are hoping that all these preventive measures are taken and the vaccine comes out as soon as possible. Things go back to normal. So the way you would go back normally to a mall or to do your online, normal shopping offline, you should continue to do. We all pray and hope that should happen. But at the same time, we know the impact that that corona or COVID has brought in the lives of consumers, in the lives of brands. We feel everyone would want to be digitally ready. They would want to ensure an omni-channel approach, which basically means every brand would want to have an offline share of sales versus an online share of sales. They would continuously be looking at what is the share of business that they get from online, and that's what we hope that the omni channel is the future of retail, and specifically digital retail has to increase the share. See, offline retail is there and it will stay there. Like I said in the beginning, there are a few things which will never replace, but there are a lot of things which online brings to you. For example, if you go to a store and you want to buy a blue color shoes or a shirt in of size 46, there is no way you can filter, right? That's what is the beauty of a mobile app or an e-commerce website, where you have unlimited possibilities. You go to the website, either you search or you navigate. The mall guy does not give you that option, right? You just have to navigate. The mall guy will tell you, just go navigate, go left, right, second floor, third floor. That's navigation. In online, you go, you select by category, you go to apparels. Within apparels, you go to shirts or footwear or whatever. And then within that, if you want to sports shoes, you go to that also. Within sports shoes, you select your color. Within color, you can select brand, you can select size. So unlimited possibilities, right? Then with more evolution of e-commerce, you will also be able to see. So today, let's say Noon has recently added one of the things that we have added. If you're using Noon, you will see some of the items which our marketplace sellers sell, right? We have added a percentage which shows how many times this guy always has this item in stock. So that gives you confidence that 95% of the time this item is in stock. So he's canceling 5% of the orders. So you can trust this guy that 95% is a good score, which means your order will not get cancelled, because that's a risk. We want to we want to close the gap between online and offline. Currently, the biggest gap that I see, being in the industry for years, I feel the biggest gap which, let's say, that a customer would want to kill is the speed of delivery. In offline, even though you spend some time, let's say, searching for parking and searching for the store and all the challenges that I mentioned of filtering by color and so on, but you get your delivery instantly. You pay and you get the item. In online, there are companies delivering in 1 day, companies delivering in 2 days and 3 days. That's where I think the biggest gap is, and that's where most of the e-commerce companies are working, where we would want to deliver within 24 hours. That's the first plan. Future plan is that from, again, when I said online has a lot of things, one of the things that online has is data, the power of data, right? So we know last 1 year what has been our top selling item. We know last 1 month what is our top selling item at a grand level. It's not at a store level. In malls, what will happen is that one store will have, but you will not have at a mall level. So that data helps you identify that, okay, 80% of your customers are looking for these 20% of the items, which is basically the 20-80 Pareto, right? So when we find out that, okay, most of the selling items are these, let's say out of 1 million items that we are selling, there are some 30-40,000 SKUs, which are in high demand. The moment we have that data, we have that data already. The moment we start placing these items into every corner of the city, that's when I think the next big success of e-commerce will come. Say, for example, in Riyadh, I'm not aware much of Jeddah locality. So in Riyadh, let's say we have a mini warehouse in Suleimania, we have a mini warehouse near airport, we have a mini warehouse in Sulai, and we have a mini warehouse somewhere in Darija. Okay, 4 or 5 localities. The moment we start stocking these 30,000 items in each of the warehouse, that's when we can tell our customers that now you will get your delivery in 3 hours, which should match with the time that you invest in mall. And that's when I think the next biggest wave of success of e-commerce will come, when we reduce the difference of the delivery time. I think that's what I actually wanted to share. I'm sorry if I have exceeded on time. It's open now for questions and answers. In case if anyone wants to add anything, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mazhar and Abdul Latif, for joining us. very insightful. I think we've got a question already up. Munir, if you'd like to unmute your mic and go ahead and ask the question.
Hi, thank you for this amazing presentation. Just I have two questions, please. You have mentioned two interesting points regarding the consumer behavior change and the demand trend. So my question is, of my first question, in terms of managing data, what really is the challenge that Noon has been faced because of the COVID-19 case?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind, because I believe as demand increased and consumer behavior changed, that means you will have a lot of even processes is happening within your website, maybe many purchases happening. So it will be kind of, or it will be, you will have a lot of load within your website. So
Yeah.
how did you deal with, for example, with such a case?
So, good question. I think I briefly covered that. I'll just try and be more elaborate. Whenever such sudden change comes, like I said in the previous slides, it impacts your operations ability. And what is at risk? As an outsider, someone would think all is green for e-commerces. There is no problem at all because without investment, we got so many customers, we got so many orders. Usually, in a normal business scenario, you would have to invest a lot to get so many customers and do so much marketing. It's all green. But the fact is that, let's say if we are shipping 10,000 orders, every e-commerce has this problem. From 10,000 orders, let's say 3% orders or 2% orders gets cancelled and another 2-3% gets delayed, which basically means from 10,000 orders, somewhere around 600 customers are not happy. Now this 10,000 orders becomes 50,000 orders and your percentage jumps, right? Because now you have same number of people, but you have to deliver more. Similarly, the sellers who were doing lesser orders have to do a lot of orders and they run out of stock. So now if your percentage jumps from 6% to 10% and the base of orders has increased from 10,000 to 50,000, so now you have 10% unhappy customers from a 50,000 base. So from 600 unhappy customers, now you have moved to 5,000 unhappy customers, right? And these 5,000 unhappy customers will definitely make a snap, will definitely make a Instagram post, will tag Noon somewhere. Again, I'm not questioning basic consumer rights. They have the right to do it. It's just that it puts challenges on operations to excel. It tells operations team members that if you are working 8 hours, you should start working 14 hours because we cannot suddenly expand the number of drivers or number of people in the warehouses, and they have to. So one of the things that we did to answer your question specifically is finding out offline. So there were, let's say there were players who were doing offline business. They have employees who were actually now not being made to use because offline everything was completely shut, right? So finding out those kind of players who do not have, let's say a food store, or even a food is actually not the right example. Let's say any delivery store for household appliances has vehicles and has people, right? And their stores are closed. The best example could be, let's say Jareer or Extra, right? Their stores are closed. Normally Jareer or Extra would use their vehicles and would use their drivers to deliver these items to customers. Now we saw this as an opportunity that they don't have to, and a lot of retail companies had to also terminate people or remove some of their workforces. So this was the opportunity to shake hands with those guys and tell them, see, we actually see surge in demand. We need people and you don't need people. Is there a way we can work together and we use your people for X days? And that also ensures that your people are not unemployed, and at the same time it helps us. So there were 2-3 such partnerships done, and that helped us manage our operations better.
Yes, I get you. And And just, I have another question. Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned in the last slide that this year the COVID-19 will made, let's say, will made us, or will make the digital transformation or evolution, and you support this, let's say, revolution. So I was thinking, for us as a generation that later will lead, okay, the industries. So how we can contribute really in this revolution, how we can be more supportive to that change.
See, I think it's more of the ecosystem. I think, that question will have a very detailed answer, and I have been associated with Saudi for about 7 years now. And how we can help. For example, one of the reasons I am talking to you is so that we, all of us together, can help the digitalization or e-commerce revolution to grow faster, right? And one of the reasons I mentioned to, I think one of the emails to Mustafa or Mr. Ahab, that these sessions that we are doing, we should definitely talk more about this, so that people are aware what e-commerce holds, what is the potential of e-commerce. Historically, it's a human nature, right? That you are in your comfort zone. So the retailers, when I picked that point that I'm associated to Saudi for 7 years, the retailers in the market are associated to something since years, right? His father or his grandfather has been doing this business, retail business, where they are making mashallah good money. They are structured in a way that they do not think left and right. They are running that business. That business is doing good. There is mashallah good footfall. A lot of customers are going to their store. They don't need e-commerce. That's their thinking. So the help that we would need, all of us would need, is that how do we help change this thought process? How do we talk more about digitalization? For example, people being uncomfortable paying online is a problem for so many people, which basically means there is something that they are used to and they don't want to move away from that. There is something that they might have heard and they don't want to change that habit. Again, that's not a very big problem in the growth of e-commerce, but it puts pressure on the offerings that you can make. But for me, the overall growth of e-commerce will come only when there is a long-term acceptability, especially in the suppliers, that yes, e-commerce is the thing to go. Overall, for Middle East market, the share of e-commerce from total retail stands at 3%. In some of the European markets and UK markets, it stands at between 10 to 12%. In US, it's above 12 to 14%. So it's not becoming the part of life. 3% is very less, right? Which basically means if I go to a retailer who's doing millions of business offline and I will tell him 3% of your business will come from online, he will laugh at me and say, please get out. I don't need you, right? But when you sell the story saying this is the future, today it's 3%, but the way you can take learnings from other countries, right? The way it has moved from 3 to 10 in other countries, and now it is becoming a strong portion. So one of the things that all of us have to do is becoming a strong share of their pie, right? So just sharing some of the information, for some of our top sellers, we are actually more than 50 to 60% of their overall business. But we need to work and make more of those sellers. Initially when I say ecosystem, it's not just convincing. It's also the habit, right? It's also the ability, right? For example, you all in this group, mashallah, will be mobile first guys always. You might hardly get on laptops, right? So everything is quite easy for you to take a picture, to take a, put an Excel and share and so on. Nowadays, people work on Excel sometimes on mobile also, because mobile screens are becoming so big, 6 inches, and 6 inches is like super common, right? 6.5 inches. Maybe a few years back, if you ask, 6 inch was considered to be a monstrous screen, right? So when I say ability, I'll give you an example. So in 2015 sometime, okay, that time I was associated with Souk. We were on a call, and we were asking the seller to. He was saying that I have shipped these 20 items, and our data showed that he has not shipped. So the only way to validate is if he can give us airway bill numbers, right? So we asked him, okay, give us airway bill numbers. Ideally, and that time I was pretty new here and coming from India. I was working earlier with eBay, and there the sellers are, let's say, much more e-commerce ready. I never expected the kind of format in which I will receive the airway bill number. I was ideally expecting an email with attachment which has 20 airway bill numbers. And what I got, he wrote all those 20 airway bill numbers manually with a pen on paper. He took a picture of that paper and he sent that to me, right? So that's one example, but that's what reflects the ecosystem. The growth of e-commerce is definitely in the hands of the young guys. It's definitely in your hands. The more we spread about this, the more we talk about this, the more we make people e-commerce ready. And e-commerce ready is not just convincing them to work with e-commerce, but after convincing, it's about ensuring that they do things which are required for doing e-commerce. Again, I'm emphasizing on ability part of it, because we face that day to day. That one example of airway bill number is not limited to one, and I cannot share in this short time lot of examples, but there are sellers who would get convinced on the first point, which means they want to work with you. But the moment you share with them an Excel file and say, please fill all your products information in this, because see, if you have to put your product information on the website, it has to come in the Excel, right? It has to come in some format. The moment we share that file, the sellers here in this part of the world would straight say, I'm sorry, I cannot do that much. If you want to work with, if you want me to work with you, come to my store, you see all the products are displayed, you take picture yourself, you write description yourself, you do everything. Unlike, in a country like China, where even 100,000 units, 100,000 SKUs, if you ask the product information from those sellers, and we've done that, we do work with some of the China sellers as well, especially our UAE team. So, 100,000 SKUs, you ask them, they will have all that information somewhere in the system, somewhere they can just do a download and share that information with you quickly. So it's more around the convincing as well as the ability, and the sellers agreeing that e-commerce is the next big thing to do, and they have to invest. If it's a smart businessman, he would employ a guy who's good on laptops, desktop, and who can be his e-commerce manager, who heads his e-commerce function, and he works with the e-commerce companies to sell their products online. I hope that answers. Sorry, it was a detailed answer, but it's a point which is very close to my heart, and I seriously want to contribute towards developing the seller ecosystem or e-commerce ecosystem in Saudi Arabia.
No, really, thank you. I appreciate every details you said. Thanks.
So I'm sorry, we are running ahead of time. From my side, I'm okay. I have another 15 minutes. I can still continue in case.
Sure. So we'll take another last two questions.
Sure.
Does anyone have a question? Please raise your hands. Maybe Mr.
You can also write in the chat box, guys, if you have a question.
You can also ask, yes, in the chat box. Yes, our friend, you may unmute, and I don't know your name, so please unmute and just ask the question.
It's a long name, S2013 something.
It's KFUPM ID, yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. My question, I wanted to ask about a point that you mentioned slightly in your presentation, is about variety. It's always a question that comes to mind: why do we not have high variety in our online shopping, such as Noon, compared to the other countries or other online shopping sites in Europe or USA or India and China?
Yeah.
So is it perhaps because our market is smaller and still new, or is it for logistical reasons?
Yeah. Good. So this is one of the things which takes me back to the 2016 days when we were discussing why Noon, right? So when we would go to brands and talk about why Noon, why should we launch Noon, one of the things was this, that the variety in the country, specifically in the online segment, is not as and like the gentleman said. So just to quote some numbers, if you look at eBay in US and try to find out how many SKUs they have, there is no exact number, but there are approximate quotes. It's about 300 million SKUs. Alibaba in China is about 400 million SKUs, and Amazon in the US is somewhere lesser than 300 million, somewhere around 220, 240. And the moment you come to Middle East, okay, that number drops to, let's not talk about Noon, let's talk about a player who's more than 12 years in the country. Let's talk about Souk. That player now, which has now become Amazon, it has 1.5 million SKUs, or let's say before it became Amazon, it was 1.5 million. So
Sorry,
you see from
what is
two.
this? Sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
just want to ask what is SKUs?
Sorry, I cannot hear you. Which one?
The unit you're mentioning after the number.
So an SKU is basically just a product, right? So
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm using a term which you SKU is basically a unique product. So let's say if I am selling this tissue paper, I have 500 units of this. So 500 units is quantities, but the product is only one. SKU is only one. So this
Okay,
this
okay. So
mobile, this will become
directly
two
related
SKU.
to variety.
So
Yeah,
Mazhar,
variety.
this is stock keeping units, right? This is basically one unit value
Stock
that.
keeping unit. Yeah.
Exactly.
I see.
SKU full
Okay.
form is stock keeping unit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the moment you compare Middle East with other countries, it's not about dropping by half. It's not about from 200 million to 100 million or to 50 million. It's a drastic drop to straight to 1.5 million, and it reflects, let's say, one, the ecosystem which the gentleman asked in the previous question. It reflects how open trade policy or international trade, how open is that. It also reflects the digitalization phase that these countries have gone versus versus what Saudi Arabia is going or overall Middle East is going. By the way, even though UAE is much more open trade policy as compared to Saudi Arabia, you don't see UAE also talking into 20 millions and 30 millions. UAE is overall about 4 to 5 million SKUs only, so it's not very high. And one of the interesting countries again is India, where let's say it's not as developed as US or UK or Europe or China. It's way behind them, but the hunger for e-commerce has what it has led to is a company called Flipkart there, which is the leading e-commerce player. They started somewhere in 2010 and they were leading in 2015, and they moved from, during that 5 years, they moved from, let's say, 1000 SKUs to 70 million SKUs within 5 years, which, let's say, souk.com has not been able to do in about 10-12 years. So yes, the problem, I think the problem in if I have to rank them, one is the overall ecosystem, the adoption of e-commerce, and the second is more on how open trade policies we have, how open we are to exposing a global selection or importing all these global items, because there have been a lot of restrictions on or requirements. There are some which are actually good. Some restrictions are good to have. For example, some of the baby products are very easy to enter some of the markets like Europe markets or even India or UAE, but SFDA would not allow those products to be entered here for the security of the baby. So some restrictions are good, but yes, some are stopping us to grow that faster. I think one of the other reason is, the third reason in my list is logistics cost. You order food or you order products here. By the way, internally we pay, the amount that we pay to logistics guys ranges between 15 to 20 real, right? When you buy a burger or something from hunger station, you pay around 12 to 15 real, right? The logistics cost here is crazy high. 15 real is very high. You go on Alibaba or AliExpress or Taobao in China, You want to buy something traveling from China to Riyadh, and they will give you shipping cost of less than $1 to $3. China to Riyadh, right? $3, less than $3, which basically
Yes,
means
correct. Actually, I've used
yeah,
eBay a few times, and it is that low.
yeah.
But if I may comment, I think it is, if I'm not mistaken, I think if it is supported by their government
Yes,
to
100%. Yeah, it is supported.
cover the cost.
It is supported, and you know, one of our close companies with whom we talk to, Saudi Post, which inshallah, which being a local company, another local company which is trying to get into this wave of digitalization, they are thinking of supporting e-commerces on doing something like this. I don't know if they will be able to support to that extent, because China is like the hub of providing these goods to the world, right? And which means the number of shipments are very high. And if their government is able to support for so many years on so many shipments, it talks a lot about, you know, the passion that they have in becoming a global leader in being the best exporters or country with highest exports. So yeah, the third reason on my list is on logistics cost. I think with the evolution of more logistics partners coming, more logistics companies coming, the competition between the companies also have to go up, and again, ecosystem developing. I think that should improve. I hope that answers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
In fact, Abdullah, the questioner, our friend just now, he's also working on an e-commerce project right now for his summer training. So I was hoping that he would ask the question. It's just that I didn't recognize his SKU number, as Abdul Latif mentioned.
Okay.
Yes, the name is not appearing. Sorry for that.
Yes, your name is not appearing, Abdullah.
Let's get one last question from Abdurrahman. And then
yes. Abdurrahman, can you unmute yourself and add on to the question?
Yeah, I have just one addition. Some products don't have variety in themselves. Let's say I want to buy a computer from any e-commerce platform in Saudi Arabia. They would only limit me to like a black color with i3 processor and 200 or 128 SSD. Why isn't there a huge variety in this section?
I mean, you're talking about Noon specifically or overall online shopping?
E-commerce in general, online shopping. Not only in Noon and in Souq previously, Amazon now. I can't find a high variety in specifications.
Okay. See, I think it could be a one-off case. Because one of the things that our category managers, so some of the team members that work with me, they are called as category managers. So their responsibility is to ensure that there is no customer complaints when it comes to variety. You know, one of the key things that my team is responsible for is the number of items or number of variety of items that you see. Overall, as a you know, category feedback, I am aware that our laptops / desktop and computers is not doing very well. There are various reasons behind that, but there is no, you know, category specific reason which can say, okay, there is a solid reason for which we don't have. For example, I can tell you for something like a health category, we have a logical reason why we don't have much variety, because there are some stuff which needs special licenses if you want to stock it in the warehouse, which is because it's connected to medication and so on. For furniture, we have a reason because we do not deal into bulky items. So for example, if you want to go and search for sofa or a couch or a reclining chair, you might not find much options. But for laptops, there is no reason. I can simply accept it that the team member would not have done a good job in inspiring you.
Thank you very much.
I guess let's because of the timing, let's wrap up on this. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Extremely informative, very timely, very engaging. I know I learned a lot from it, and we hope to see you guys in the college soon, visiting physically in the college soon.
Inshallah. I think this, we should not stop this. We should continue to do. And like I said, personally passionate about developing the overall ecosystem, and this is one of the steps that I thought we should do. And we also have, sometimes summer interns, or we would want to hire some quality talent. By the way, the third person who was not able to join, he's actually ex-student of your university.
Yes.
We actually have a gang of 4 or 5 students from your university, highly talented people, mashallah, young, energetic, and no experience, but we just hired them basis their background on studies and their energy and their hunger to do well. So I think we've heard a lot of good things about the university. Inshallah, from this group also, if needed, we'll reach out if we need to hire a few people or interns.
Inshallah. Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you, Mazhar.
Thank you, guys.
Cool.
It was
Thanks
lovely,
a lot.
lovely being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
guys.
to everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.